Hello, I'm Justin the Canadian Tuxedo. Welcome to the channel. Today we'll be talking about the new album by B.A. Johnston entitled Werewolves of London, Ontario. This is B.A. Johnston's 10th studio album, and it's the first one I've ever heard. And I gotta say, I was blown away. I listened to this record top to bottom and enjoyed every second of it. The album is a cocktail of comedy, folk punk, and it feels like it's somewhere between Letterkenny and Bo Burnham. The lyrics and delivery are fantastic and hilarious. The songs do a great job of summarizing the experience of a Southern Ontario middle-class citizen. I think it's great, and I had so much fun listening to this album. The production fits so well with the material. It's raw, but it's refined just enough to sound like it's taking itself seriously. There's hints of Minutemen, Stomping Tom, Violent Femmes, and even Jeff Rosenstock. I am a firm believer that explaining a joke too much sucks the life out of the joke, so I'm not gonna get super in depth into what the songs are entirely about, because you need to hear them. But just trust me when I say this album is fantastic, and without further ado, let's dive into the album. The album opens with Why Can't Tonight Be Wing Night? It opens sounding like an old soul song before speeding off into folk punk high gear. It's an ode to being at the right place at the wrong time, going to get wings from a place when it's not actually wing night. The song is fun as hell and has guitars and drums and organs and some off-the-cuff vocals. It's a solid and great way to open the album. The next track, There's a Hair in My Donair, had me replay the song like 2 or 3 times when I first heard it. I laughed really hard at it, and what this song does really well is be hilarious, but also be insanely catchy. The chorus is just a total earworm, and I'm not going to spoil it for you. The song has a simple punk drum beat and a lightly driven guitar, and then just the vocals are hilarious, and it's oddly relatable. I'm sure everyone's been in this situation. Definitely an early highlight on this record. The next track, Don't Want to Live for a Living, Wish I Was Born in Irving, is a great piece of Canadian satire. It's political humor about class and the division of wealth from the sort of slacker mindset. It follows a similar arrangement as the previous track with the drums and bass, but there's also a cool bass synth as well as a fun little guitar solo. I love that it sounds raw and unpolished, but doesn't sound amateur. It still sounds professional. Then we have All My Teeth Gonna Fall Out of My Head, which opens with the classic clip of Bill Murray from Little Shop of Horrors, before a bunch of goofy Casio toy synthesizer sounds come in, and the track kind of has this corny 80s synth pop thing, but it's still fun and really catchy. The song talks about eating junk food and candy and how it's gonna get to your teeth, but then how expensive dental work is. It's fun, silly, and brutally honest all at once. Next, we have My Last Shift at Timmies. This song is a hilarious story about working in the fast food world, and I think that everyone who's worked in the service industry can attest that nothing would be more satisfying than going out in a blaze of glory, unloading on one of those rude customers that you deal with, and then quitting. I just love how incredibly blunt this song is, and it's kind of like the musical equivalent of like an Adam Sandler rage moment from one of his classic movies. It's honestly one of my favorite tracks on this album. Then we have Me and the Black Mold and the Cat Who Is Now My Cat, which is a silly song about how when your partner leaves you and now you're stuck in an apartment with the cat, and it's sort of like a buddy song where you're both kind of having to live with the loss, but you end up kind of growing together as you do it. It's a short song, but the chorus gets stuck in your head very quickly. The next track is I Love Wrestling, which accurately celebrates the fandom of amateur wrestling. The behaviors that would otherwise be very unusual are, accepted in that world. And we also get the return of the cheesy Casio keyboard sounds. And as someone who grew up loving wrestling, this song is hilariously relatable. And it's also a really easy song to sing along to, and I guarantee it's going to get stuck in your head. Then we have If We Can Make It to the Pontiac Sunfire, which is a story about trying to leave a bush party without getting busted by the cops. It's another short track, but the storytelling is done so well, and you can see the whole thing play in your head. It's just really funny. Next we have the appropriately odd track, Has It Gotten Weird Enough Yet?, which is a folk punk track talking about eating mushrooms and tripping out alone at your house. accompanied by acoustic guitar and percussion. This song would feel at home, played in a straight-up punk band, and it's just really funny to hear the ongoings of someone who's tripping out on mushrooms. Definitely a highlight on the record. Next we have This Pink Eye Has Got Me Down, which starts off sounding very sludgy with its fuzzed out guitar and classic rock drumming before speeding into a really quick punk groove. It's a song about having pink eye and having to go out in the world because you can't take time off because you have no more sick days. It's a subtle, weird jab at the government. It's a cool shift on the record, and the heavy guitars are a real nice touch on this track, and the drumming is really good too. Then we have I Don't Buy No Government Weed, which is another incredible track on this album. The song talks about buying your weed from your buddy Steve rather than from the government dispensary. The song is filled with big 80s synths and big drum machines. It's a strange combination, but it's hilarious, and I could easily see myself belting this one out at a show. The next track we have My Opinion on Above Ground Pools, which talks about going through your Canadian Tire flyer to buy a pool and then trying to return it at the end of the summer. It's just one of those songs where it's goofy as hell, but it somehow works amazingly. It's the kind of thing that I'm sure many Canadians have pondered themselves. There's a cool drum groove and even a clarinet solo in the song, which is fun, and I love it. Next we have My Neighbor Dug a Fire Pit, which is a hilarious song about that annoying neighbor who gets wasted, blasting music that you hate, and then he ends up accidentally setting himself on fire. It's played out like an 80s rock track, which is fitting given the subject matter. The song is really funny, and it's like one of those things where it's the kind of thing you picture in your head, but you never want to actually happen. Then we have GM Can Sit On It, Oshawa 2018, which is a folk song about sticking it to GM for screwing people out of jobs, retirement, and the environment, all while lining their own pockets. It's about the economic fallout that occurs when these big companies shut down production, and it's one of the more serious songs on the record, but it feels no less true. Next, we have Hit by a Senior, which is a quick punk rock track about getting hit by a car driven by a senior. It's short, sweet, and hilarious, and I also love how at the end of the song, the drums kind of just messily fall apart, and it's really funny. Then we have Only Thing I Want to Do, Doritos and You. It's a synth pop love song to Doritos and your partner. It tries to be seductive, but, Doritos and cats get in the way. The song ends with an epic sax solo, and it's full of goofy synths and big Casio sounds that are really cheesy, but they work somehow. Then we have Thrift Store Jesus, which talks about the things a thrift store Jesus would see you doing around the house. Like walking in your underwear. I think you get the idea. And there's a certain almost companionship that occurs between this man and his Thrift Store Jesus. It's quirky, it's a kind of song that you can really picture in your mind when you hear it. It's another fine example of the storytelling on this record. Then we have Watching My Ass Get Fat, which is about being lazy and yet self-aware enough to know how lazy you are, but you still do it anyway. It's an interesting thing to write about in a song, but it's funny and memorable, and it's a really good late album highlight. The closing track, The Canon Logo Will Get Me Through the Night, starts off with this sort of audio storytelling of like a Pink Floyd track, with like an 80s company stinger off of an old VHS tape before some slow-moving synths come in, and B.A. starts singing about classic films that he would watch to get him through the night. What's interesting about this is that it kind of feels sort of melancholic, almost as if the movies were a sort of escapism for him, which, given some of the other content on the record, makes sense. It's a bit of a different tone from the rest of the record, but I think it's an appropriate end of the album. Overall, I think these songs paint such an interesting and relatable and often hilarious picture. Many of the songs feel like they could be TikTok trending songs. There's a certain slacker charm and wit to these songs, and I think that while there's plenty of humor in them, I think that there's more to this than just novelty. These songs have characters struggling with real-life problems, and there's a cynicism and political lean to them. It's smart, honest, funny, and artful all at once. I was constantly laughing and engaged in the storytelling on this album, and it's a fantastic record that definitely deserves a listen. I'm going to give this album 4.5 beer-soaked Wrangler denim jackets out of 5. One of the most original records I've heard this year, and so many of these songs have been stuck in my head ever since I've listened to them. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments what your favorite comedy record is, or what record do you think I should do next. Stay weird, my friends, and I'll catch you on the B-side.